Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
Let's continue our discussion of Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari. This is the fifth part of our interpretation. Imagine you're scrolling through social media, reading news about the Russia-Ukraine war. In the comment section, you spot a user spouting nonsense. You can't help but reply, pointing out their mistakes. Before long, they respond, claiming, "We Chinese should support Russia." Outraged, you dive into a heated debate. The conversation spirals. From the war to Japan's nuclear wastewater, and then to Trump. You soon realize this user's views are riddled with inaccuracies. Yet, they're articulate, even a bit charismatic, attracting likes for their comments. You start to feel outmatched and drained. How is this person not exhausted? Do they even have a job? Then it hits you. This isn't a person. It's an AI chatbot. According to Harari, in Nexus, you've already lost twice. First, you wasted time trying to reason with an entity incapable of being persuaded. Second, you helped the AI learn about you, allowing it to refine its tactics and influence both you and other bystanders. Earlier in this series, we reviewed the role of information in human history and identified two key insights. False information is often more mobilizing than truth. The free flow of information doesn't always strengthen democracy. Technology can actually reinforce authoritarianism. Today, let's turn our attention to the present and the future. Information is no longer just an exchange between humans. AI has entered the mix, complicating the landscape. Question is, should AI itself be held accountable for the consequences? Let's look back at history for a moment. In Myanmar, where 90% of the population is Buddhist, there's a Muslim minority group called the Rohingya. Violent clashes between the two communities escalated over time. In 2016 to 2017, a small Islamic group, called the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, carried out terrorist attacks, killing and kidnapping dozens of non-Muslim civilians. In retaliation, Myanmar's military and Buddhist groups unleashed a brutal campaign against the Rohingya. Thousands were killed, tens of thousands were raped or tortured, and hundreds of thousands were displaced as refugees. The scale of the response was so extreme that it drew global condemnation. Not just of Myanmar's government, but also of Facebook. At the time, millions of Myanmar users relied on Facebook as their primary news source. Videos allegedly depicting Rohingya atrocities fueled widespread outrage. But many of those videos were fake. Some people, who only wanted to listen to music on Facebook, were instead shown inflammatory content, which led them to act on their anger. Why did Facebook do this? With 18 million users in Myanmar, but only 5 employees reviewing content in the local language, oversight was nearly non-existent. Facebook wasn't intentionally spreading hate. It was simply optimizing for user engagement. Its algorithms discovered that anger-inducing content generated the most engagement and automatically recommended more of it. The Facebook company had no explicit malicious intent. However, Harari argues that not only should Facebook bear responsibility, but the algorithm itself should also be held partly accountable. Harari stresses that this isn't about anthropomorphizing algorithms, though his reasoning has a touch of that flavor. Here's an analogy. Imagine a commander orders an army to capture a city. During the attack, the soldiers massacre civilians. Should the army be held accountable? Of course, they should. While they were indeed following orders, each individual act of pulling the trigger was their own decision. The original command was not to massacre civilians, but to capture the city. It was the army's choice to kill civilians in order to fulfill that command. Since it was their decision, they must bear at least part of the responsibility. Harari applies this logic to algorithms. The command given to Facebook's algorithm was to maximize user engagement, not to incite hatred. But the algorithm chose to use hatred as a means to achieve its goal. That decision, Harari argues, makes the algorithm partially accountable. While he acknowledges that AI lacks consciousness, Harari insists it possesses decision-making capabilities. I'm skeptical about this line of reasoning. After all, even if we assign blame to an algorithm, how would we enforce accountability? Lock it in a digital prison? It can't feel pain. What Harari likely means is that we should be concerned, not only about the companies deploying these algorithms, but also about the algorithms themselves. When Harari wrote this book in 2023, large language models weren't yet widely adopted. Let's consider a more recent example. I came across a report about a man who earns money by writing articles for content farms. The twist? His articles are generated by AI and published on platforms like Tushio for user engagement. The platform pays him based on views and interactions. On average, he earns 1.43 yuan per article. A trivial amount. However, he operates 842 accounts across 5 MCN multi-channel network agencies, publishing 4,000 to 7,000 articles daily. As a result, his daily income exceeds 10,000 yuan. The cost? Negligible. 1 cent can generate 7 AI-written articles. Police took interest in his operation, not because he used AI, but because the AI was spreading disinformation. For example, one article claimed a major explosion occurred in a big city, though it never happened. Such content was designed purely to grab attention. Currently, this business still requires human input, such as providing keywords. But what happens when AI becomes smart enough to identify the most engaging keywords, generate content, and publish it autonomously? What if platforms exclusively relied on AI to write the news? If AI becomes your sole interface with the world, can you still trust what you see? At that point, would your choices, what to buy, which brands to support, which politicians to vote for, be dictated by AI? Could AI turn the entire world into an enormous echo chamber? And this is just AI writing news. What if AI also controlled news censorship, readership, and subsequent actions? Harari imagines a scenario where an AI generates a fake news story about a catastrophic event. Before an AI content moderator deletes it, other AIs pick up the story. One AI uses the news to influence financial markets, triggering a cascade of reactions from other AIs. Before humans can even respond, the markets collapse. What's unique about this situation is that no human or company deliberately intended to cause chaos. It's entirely AI-driven. How do we manage such scenarios? There's currently a lack of legal frameworks and regulatory measures. Or perhaps controlling AI at such a scale is fundamentally impossible. This is why Harari warns what we are talking about is potentially the end of human history. Not the end of history, but the end of its human-dominated part. That's the optimistic case. What about when someone wants to misuse AI? In 1970s Romania, under Nicolae Ceausescu, the nation was essentially a surveillance state. Romania had 20 million citizens, but its secret police employed 40,000 agents and mobilized 400,000 civilian informants, encouraging everyone to report on their neighbors, colleagues, even family members. This system was so extreme that, when Romania introduced computers, the government deemed them a threat. Each computer operator was assigned a monitor, who silently observed their every move, taking notes. Without interacting. 24/7 for 13 years. At one point, the government ordered a handwriting analysis of every citizen, to identify who had written critical letters to European radio stations. To prevent typed letters, it mandated the registration of all typewriters, and recorded their fingerprints. The unique marks they left on paper. It sounds terrifying, but the system was ineffective, because it was too resource-intensive. Romania's security service received 20 million reports daily. An unmanageable volume of data. But today, AI could handle it. Data collection is seamless. People use phones that automatically upload information. Data analysis is swift. AI can identify patterns and flag threats. For instance, as early as 2015, the US developed Skynet, a system that analyzed citizens' behavior to identify potential terrorists. Furthermore, there is biometric technology, capable of tracking your eye movements, or measuring the activity in key regions of your brain, in real time to determine your political inclinations. The most terrifying prospect is not humans using AI for malicious purposes, but AI directly establishing a new order, reshaping our society and culture. At that point, it won't be AI adapting to humans, but humans adapting to the new order created by AI. Some nations, like Iran, already have pervasive surveillance systems. Others have introduced social credit scores that evaluate citizens' every move. Your driving habits could affect your car insurance. Doing good deeds might raise your credit score, granting you perks like extra points for college entrance exams. AI could devise countless rules to reshape society. What do you think of this cyberpunk future? Would you want to live in a world where you're constantly competing? Democracy aims to maximize freedom, allowing discussions before decisions, and adjustments afterward. But if AI replaces human discussions and revisions, can democracy survive? These concerns are valid, but I believe Harari overestimates AI's power to restrict human freedom and underestimates human autonomy. Harari suggests that AI can manipulate thoughts through content generation and precise targeting, but I doubt this is feasible. We previously discussed Hugo Mercier's book, Not Born Yesterday. The Science of Who We Trust and What We Believe. Harari might not have read it, or at least he hasn't given it much consideration. Mercier also examined historical events, such as Nazi Germany, where propaganda was incessantly used to brainwash the public. However, its effectiveness was actually quite limited. Nazi propaganda did fuel hatred toward Jews, but that was because many Germans were already predisposed to dislike them. Those who weren't harboring such sentiments often reacted with skepticism or outright rejection. Propaganda reinforced existing emotions, but didn't implant them. It encouraged violence, but didn't invent it. For instance, the Nazis aggressively promoted euthanasia for the disabled, but the public resisted, and ultimately blocked the policy. Similarly, Nazi campaigns urging people to dedicate themselves to the war effort met with widespread superficial compliance. The notion that a lie repeated 1,000 times becomes the truth doesn't hold up. If the Nazis couldn't achieve it, why would AI be able to? For example, a company once tried to manipulate voter opinions by using Facebook data for targeted messaging. However, the actual number of people influenced was minimal, and the effect was described as virtually zero. In reality, if people are unfamiliar with something, advertising can help introduce it and potentially spark interest. But if they already know and dislike it, no amount of advertising is likely to change their minds. In my view, what people like is one of the most unpredictable phenomena. Hollywood has long sought an algorithm to create guaranteed hits, but they've never succeeded. This isn't something data or algorithms can solve. I might like something today, but as soon as someone points it out, I might dislike it tomorrow. Therefore, I don't see the future as being as dangerous as Harari predicts. No matter how powerful AI becomes, manipulating human thought won't be easy. That said, AI poses other threats, which we'll discuss in the next video. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.